I was dumped by my GF because she thought I wasn't going anywhere in life. What excuses have you heard when you were... Story 1. A friend of mine got dumped over something silly. Like it's not you, it's me. He was pretty mad frustrated about it until he heard about what happened to the guy she started dating 3 days later. He came home late from a club tipsy, and the mad meanie stabbed him to passing. That could have been my friend. Answer, my sister was living with her boyfriend, and they were having problems, so she stayed with me and my family for a few weeks. I suggested they live apart for a while since they moved in together pretty quickly. She thought it was a good idea. She moved out. He seemed sad she was moving out, but seemed to understand. The very day she moved out, he brutally take down a woman who looked a lot like my sister. Really fudge disturbing. Our mother had died not even 10 months earlier, so it was all sorts of messed up. Story 2. Edit. Basically, everything I did on Reddit from 2008 onwards was through Reddit is Fun, i.e., one of the good Reddit apps, not the crap official one that guzzles data and spews up adverts everywhere. Then Reddit not only eliminate third-party apps by overcharging for their APIs, they did it in a way that made it plain they're total jerks. It's the being total jerks about it that's really got on my wick, to be honest. So just before they ganked the app I used to Reddit with, I'm taking my ball and going home. Or at least wiping the comments I didn't make from a desktop terminal. Story 3. It's funny how much people raid into breakup explanations or excuses. I don't believe humans are very good at explaining behavior changes due to unconscious emotional impulses, such as falling in love with another person. They're so off the mark about the real reasons, it's not even funny. They don't even know what's going on. So all explanations are irrelevant. In my world, I don't feel the same about you anymore is equivalent to I think we're growing apart because you're fat, and your finances are out of whack. The former explanation is truer, although less consoling. We feel better if we can pinpoint our mistakes. Women, my friends, will overlook every bad thing about you. Finances, looks, crappy car, being overweight, lack of education, if they truly are in love with you. So whenever you hear an excuse, don't focus on the words because they are just saying, I don't love you anymore. Answer. Your comment probably came too late, but I think it should be up near the top. In high school, when I'd go to break up with a girl, I couldn't explain why. I just didn't want to do the relationship anymore. But they'd say, that's not good enough. You've got to tell me why. Give me a reason. Eventually, I'd just fall back on the stupid old, it's not you, it's me. That was true in its own limited way. But the real reasons couldn't be put into words, and therefore the words that did come out sounded like the bullshit they were. Story 4. I'm way too late to this thread, but I have 2. You're cutting into my WoW rating time. Dude was in university on loans taking the bare minimum of courses. His landlords fed him dinner, his 1 meal a day. He had no job and social life outside of me. I was in university full-time in an intensive program that demanded 12 to 14-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week, a busy social life, and I still found time to see him. The other guy was thinking of taking a job in another province. We'd been together 3 months. He asked my opinion. I said, whatever you decide, I'll support you. Turns out this was the wrong answer. I asked him what the right answer would have been. Apparently, it would be either, I'll move with you, or, but what about our relationship? This happened right after her borrowed $650 from me that he never paid back. I later found out he'd been cheating on me with a girl who had the same extremely uncommon name as I do. Till doctor, I pick winners. Story 5. My fiance of 3 years dumped me with the explanation, we go to Target way too much. Also, I don't love you. Edit. I mean that we were dating for 3 years and were engaged for a few months. We did not have a 3-year engagement. Bonus material. This is how this winter proposed. We went for a walk in a nearby park, and then he started stammering like a fool and saying, well, I've been thinking about the long-term benefits of entering into a marriage. I asked him if it was a proposal or a business arrangement. He then got down on one knee, reached into his pocket, and pulled out his wallet because he'd forgotten the ring in the car. He said he wanted to just use it as a placeholder until we got back to the car. I really love telling this story because I'm so far removed from it that I can now look at it from a humorous perspective. I'm also generally pretty good at the self-deprecating humor, so this usually gets some good laughs when I tell it to people. Hey, the jackass proposed and broke up with me in super lame ways. I'm going to capitalize on the story as much as I can. Story 6. This was from my ex-GF from the night she dumped me. 1. I want you to be happy, and we can't be happy together, too. I want to get married, and you want to wait until my kids graduate from college. 3. You want a steady and quiet life. I need chaos and excitement. 4. You really overreacted when you thought I had to eliminate the family pet. What she forgot to tell me was the primary and real reason, which was, 1, I have started to fudge someone else. Boom, almost an 8-year relationship, over in less than 30 minutes. Story 7. After I found out she was cheating, you're too good and nice. I don't love you anymore. I fell in love with someone else. So you want someone who treats you like shoot? I want someone who can make me do things when I don't want to do them. We were married for less than 3 months. We had dated for 7 years. Felt bad, man. Karma bit her in the jerk, though. Story 8. First date, me, I don't want kids, ever. Had surgery to make sure I never would. Him, okay, 2 years later, wedding plans underway. Him, so I want to have a couple kids within 5 years. Me, what? You know I had my tubes tied. That's why we don't have to use condoms, remember? Him, yeah, I know, but I thought I could go impregnate my last fiance. She doesn't want kids, but doesn't mind surrogating for us. Then you could raise them. Cool, huh? Me boggles for a full minute. What part of I went through a painful and expensive surgery to make sure I never have kids suggests to you that I actually want to raise kids, let alone yours by another woman? Him, you are ruining my dreams. I thought you'd change your mind if you really loved me. Picks up chick in gym the following week, phones me constantly to describe in explicit detail what an amazing fudge she is, marries her 6 months later. They punch out a couple of rugrats, and she makes him sell the vintage Camaro that he's literally spent the last decade rebuilding from the ground up, including using a metal lathe to build parts. And get a minivan instead. I got tired of the phone calls and moved 1,000 miles away. Fudge this shoot. Story 9. Lisa, what do you say to a boy to let him know you're not interested? Marge Simpson. Well, honey, Homer, let me handle this, Marge. I've heard them all. I like you as a friend. I think we should see other people. I know speak English. Lisa, I get the idea. Homer, I'm married to the sea. I don't want to eliminate you, but I will. Marge Simpson. Honey, Lisa, I tell this boy that you're very flattered, but you're just not ready for this kind of thing. Lisa, thanks, Mom. Homer, and if that doesn't work, 6 simple words. I'm not gay, but I'll learn. Story 10. This will probably be buried in the older comments, but just hear me out, man. I got my computer science degree and was hired by a fairly large company right out of college as a software engineer. I make an income comparable to yours, and I get to travel overseas a few times a year for work. I am 30 now and have been working here for 7 years. I made the mistake of letting a career determine where I was headed. I used my career as an excuse to forget the rest of my life goals and dreams. You end up making a good salary, but yet you end up paycheck to paycheck because you buy into consumerism, rack up bills, and probably have a mortgage. If you are in a similar case, then your ex was right. You are going nowhere. Why? Because you are already there. You have chosen your path of a career man, and that is what you have to look forward to for the next 30 years. While some people strive for this type of thing, a lot of us don't. Do I really find it enjoyable to spend my days in an office working for someone else? I saw where I was headed. When I looked into the future, I saw myself driving to the office every day. You know how darn depressing that is? Then I realized I actually have a choice. I sold my townhouse and saved up a bunch of money. This year, I'm taking a break from the corporate world for a while to chase down some dreams. I'm just saying it's quite possible this is what your ex meant when she said you were going nowhere. Answer, this is what I was wondering when I read the OP. By all means, his accomplishments are impressive, so then I thought, then what is his ex defining as going somewhere? I figure it must be, like you said, that perhaps his ambition has gotten in the way of improvement in other areas of his life. Good luck to you, by the way, insane engineer. Chase those dreams into the wind. Story 11. After 3.5 years, and we've done everything together, she said, the small things add up. And I realized it's not that I don't want to spend the rest of my life with you, but I can't live with you. Also added note to that, she recently admitted that she's in love with her guy friend who's 3,000 miles away, that she's seen once. We still live together and are still good friends. I honestly think there's something wrong with me. Answer. Long-distance relationships can have a super ridiculous level of intimacy that normal relationships just cannot sustain. Like the infatuation stage almost becomes semi-permanent because there's a perpetual longing that isn't fulfillable. I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with you. At some point, she probably just reached out to 3K friend for emotional support about something and shoot snowballed from there. Story 12. We broke up because he cheated on me with his ex-GF. His reasoning? We became too committed. I can't become committed to a woman in this point in my life. Maybe in the past, but not now. When I started to cry, he continued, you're so young. You'll get over it. You'll have tons of other guys. So I retorted, I have more years to have more guys, but it also means I'll have a longer time to remember what you did to me and what fudge cunt you really are. He made it seem like 25-year-olds don't have feelings as opposed to guys in their mid-30s. Like they have a love life buoyancy that makes them unbreakable if you drop them hard. When I texted him later in seething hatred, he texted back, "You'll have a guy by midnight, move on." I imagine he said this casually, like a police officer waving along traffic. I was so angry because he had earlier broken up with me and then had courted me back. Why did he want me back? Because he was tired of chasing tail. I was angry at him for betraying me and myself too, for letting myself be fooled a second time. Answer: I was angry at him for betraying me and myself too, for letting myself be fooled a second time. I'm painfully familiar with this. My new rule is this: everyone I date gets exactly one opportunity to dump me. No second chances as a matter of principle. Second chances apply only to relationships that end mutually for practical reasons. E.g., if my current boyfriend and I break up, it will likely be because one of us can't get a visa to the other's country. But if that situation changed a couple years down the road, I'd be open to getting back together. Story 13. My first wife and I were always fought because I wasn't living up to my potential. Now, some backstory. We met in high school, where I was a National Merit Scholar, a 4.0 student, and in a number of honors classes and programs: the physics club, the math club, academic decathlon, etc. During my senior year, I secured senatorial sponsorship to West Point Academy. I got her pregnant, which I freely admit was my dumb mistake, our senior year in high school. She had no intention of exploring any option other than having the baby, so I didn't go to college and instead entered the working world as a husband and father at 19, working 2 jobs, Bennigan's line cook and newspaper delivery at night, to make ends meet while she did no work and continued to go to college while her parents watched our baby. This was the time when she constantly was down on me for failing to live up to my potential. As if any 19-year-old with no college education, a new baby, and paying someone else's college tuition is going to be doing awesomely at life. In the years since we've split up, I've managed to run a successful martial arts studio, be involved in several moderately successful local Celtic bands, make computer programming my career. I currently am head of software development at a mid-sized company, publish a reasonably successful novel, maintain a website that helps about 2 million setlick musicians a year, and create my own line of tin whistles, which I sold successfully for a couple of years. Oh yeah, and earned 3 patents, which made me a ton of cash during the dot-com boom. In your face, meanie. Answer: I've managed to run a successful martial arts studio, be involved in several moderately successful local Celtic bands, make computer programming my career. I currently am head of software development at a mid-sized company, publish a reasonably successful novel, maintain a website that helps about 2 million setlick musicians a year, and create my own line of tin whistles, which I sold successfully for a couple of years. Oh yeah, and earned 3 patents, which made me a ton of cash during the dot-com boom. Dude, what about your kid? Story 14. A lot of comments already, so this might not be seen, but whatever. I had a girlfriend ask me if I'd consider moving 1,500 miles away to live in a treehouse. When I said no, she told me, "You won't live with me in a treehouse, and all you want to do is have intimacy and watch Futurama. You're too boring for me." Never saw her again, although I heard she married the guy who built said treehouse a month later. Story 15. Friend of mine was dating a good-looking Swedish girl for months before dumping her for dubious reasons. He had finally met her parents and discovered that her mother had flabby arms. He operated by the rule of the mother being the future image of the daughter. What's the point in continuing the relationship? We all told him he was crazy. Perhaps the most bizarre part, she lived across the street from us and he'd broke up with her via a written letter. A letter mailed from across the street. She was confused and no one among had the balls to tell her what happened. Scumbag friend. College years. Story 16. My boyfriend of 18 months dumped me because his mother didn't like me. Edit. I've never even met his mother. He came to the U.S. to live with his sister and left his parents in Guatemala. His sister and her family loved me. His mother made him choose between me and her, and he chose her. The way I see it, he could have stood up to his mother, picked me, and we would be happy together. But he didn't. He chose her, and I feel I'm better off without that crazy in my life. Story 17. I was 19, a student, and had been dating this girl throughout literally my entire teens and planned on marrying her. She was just about a week over 18 at the time. Her and I had returned from vacation with my mother and stepfather on a Sunday night and proceeded to drink lightly. Later that night, after passing out at my mother's, I was awoken at 2 a.m. to my mother pulling me out of bed and leading me outside to the driveway, where she told me to sneak and look in the backseat of one of our vehicles. I witnessed my then 38-year-old stepfather banging my GF. I attempted to bust the window with bare fists to get my hands around his neck. Wasn't very successful. At that time, I made a sprint to the garage where I kept my firearms. During this, and lucky for him, he had his keys on him and was able to get his truck started. As I came around to the driveway, he was just making his getaway through the yard and onto the road, both still private pictures. I did not fire my weapon at that moment. He had already made it away. Admittedly, I was completely out of my mind and was going to ruin the rest of my life that night if I was able to make it to him in time. I waited and paced around the street for them to return. Unbeknownst to me, my mother, of course in a frantic state, phones law enforcement 20 minutes or so after they left, exclaiming that this man is tipsy driving and needs to be arrested. Yes, I'm aware of how stupid that sounds, and so is she. Anyways, after lurking for over 2 hours, I notice a vehicle coming. I am fully stealth at this moment. I was ready to do what I still sometimes, in the most deepest part of my mind, wish I could have done. I wanted to put as many bullets into this man's face that I had. Thankfully, the vehicle turned out to be a police officer's vehicle. I immediately set my pistol down and waited as he pulled up to my mother's house and walked to my front door before I slid quietly into the back of the house, out of sight. I wasn't about to leave my mother hanging, so I made my way through the house to the door with her. I had to explain that this was just blown out of proportion and that my mother had a panic attack and that I'm sorry about the partied, too hard time of his. He said he drove around searching a small portion of the area and didn't recognize them anywhere. I again said sorry for the worry and it's no problem. I explained just comfort my mother and we will find somewhere to go for the night. After around 20 minutes of speaking with the officer, he started to make his way to his car and leave. Just at that time, ex and ex-stepfather, pulled up. I immediately felt that same rush that I felt at first, but because of the variables, had remained calm. I walked inside as to avoid saying anything to anyone at the time. I grabbed all my belongings, destroyed both of their phones, and tossed them in an obscure location, as so it would take them a while to discover I fudged them up. Grabbed my mother and her important belongings and left the both of them there with the officer. He initiated sobriety tests as I was pulling away. Still not sure of the outcome of those tests and don't care. And that was the last time I saw the man who fudged his fiance's son's girlfriend. I took my mother home to where my apartment was and immediately grabbed every single one of my ex's belongings and walked them out to the dumpster and threw it in. Poured some bleach on the clothes too. Then hours later, still early morning, my ex decided to show up at my apartment, demanding I let her in. She came with one of her meanie whore friends, who I promptly told to fudge off, and in a very loud tone and pushed her out of my place and slammed the door in both of their faces. I told her through the door to go look in the dumpster for any of her slut shoot. Felt good to say that. Felt good to hear her burst into cries. Stupid materialistic meanie. That was the last time I saw her. That man's cowardice saved his life that night, and mine as well in a fudge-up way. I didn't end up making the biggest mistake of my life. That situation still bears a small toll in my life when it comes to finding a relationship. It's been 4 years since then, and I haven't been in a single relationship. I have gotten laid every now and again. Yeah, sure. Doesn't really mean anything to me either way. Against everyone's beliefs, it never really hurt me like I imagined it should have. Yeah, I was seeing red that night, and yeah, my views on relationships are much different now, but I am 100 times happier now than I could ever have been dating that girl. I've made myself some money. I enjoy vacations and cruises often. I'm young and social. I think the reason I was able to get past any sort of depression is because I was raised in a somewhat proper family and never really experienced anything as crazy as that. My ex, coming from the epitome of a shoot family, and I somewhat suspected would turn out as batshit crazy as them. So to me, this was like an episode of Jerry Springer, and I was basically thinking, fudge this, I'm out. I guess it was just so trashy, I failed to relate emotionally with it. Good for me, EMO. I'd say I couldn't be any happier to right now in my life, aside the fact that some of the women I've met become severely disappoint when I'm not at all down for the lovey-dovey stuff. Other than that, I have truly good times. The reason I tell it is because I never heard a reason why this happened, nor could think of one myself, just assumed it was bad luck. Story 18. I don't have any stories that measure up, but I have exchanged a few funny post-breakup comments. Could you be a little bit more of a male body part about this, please? You're making it hard to move on. Listen, if this breakup is going to work, I'm going to need you to gain at least 15 pounds. By the way, I think your sister might be my new housemate, so I probably shouldn't hit that, right? Story 19. Girl here, worst excuse, you're just too great, and I'm only looking for intimacy. You're just too much of what I want, but shouldn't have right now. Sorry, babe. WTF, boys? Anyone here want to sleep with someone and have them bake you cookies, damn it? Story 20. Okay, I've read a ton of these replies and excuses range from lame to fudge. Were you dating someone functionally retarded? But here's what you all need to know. Her reason doesn't matter. Regardless of why she tells you she's breaking up with you, the real reason is she just doesn't love you anymore. Sorry, it sucks. Fudge does it suck. I know I had a girl break my heart as a freshman in college. I went full recluse, nearly flunked out of school, lost a ton of friends, spent a few months in counseling, and 2 weeks in the hospital. But you know what? None of that mattered. I'm sure she felt bad my life was falling apart. I'm sure she might have even felt a little guilt for it, but it wasn't her fault. That's right. She's not a terrible person for not loving you anymore. Unless, of course, you are married, but that's a whole other can of fudge up. In fact, in many ways, it makes her a better person. Notice, I didn't say it makes her better than you. I said it made her better than what she was. Why, you ask? How can not loving me anymore make her better? Because she's no longer stringing someone along. She's no longer settling for something she'll never be happy with and ultimately destroying your life much later down the road after you've got kids or a house or something cool that you'd had to split 50-50. And guess what? Her breaking up with you doesn't make you any less desirable. It doesn't make you a terrible person. It doesn't mean you need to fudge figure your life out and what you need to change. That's all a bunch of fudge bullshit, Hollywood propaganda brought to you by the same fine people who sell you 5-minute abs, anything for dummies, and extends. Fudge it. You're fine the way you are. And you know how I know? Because the perfectly lovely person who just tore your heart out did in fact fall in love with you at some point. Whatever it was that turned her off, she looked past it because you are one sexy mother fudge. Sorry, ladies, lesbians, gays, please edit the appropriate male-female gender orientation for this pep talk as you need. Your charm, your smile, that sparkle in your eyes, she found it intoxicating, and so will some other girl. A girl who, gasp, won't care about your creepy obsession with Carl Sagan or Zelda alternative tastes. She'll love you even more because of it. And guess what? You'll forget all about the hurt that Skankzilla just caused you. You might even start to feel bad about all the bad things you said about her and realize that maybe you two weren't meant to be together. And it's not because you're such a fudge, evolved human being. It's simply this. Being with the right person makes you realize how wrong all those old relationships were and thankful that you're not still stuck in them. TIDR. Just because she dumped you doesn't mean you need to change. It also doesn't make her a bad person. It just means you two need to find the people who are right for you. Story 21. It's tough for people, to be honest. The answer is usually, I don't like you anymore, you annoy me. People should always assume that's why someone is breaking up with them, and their demanding a reason doesn't help. Let people just say, I think we should break up, and don't demand a reason. The reason is obvious, and by demanding a reason, you are putting them in a terrible situation that leads to people making up bullshit. Story 22. You're working for a Fortune 50 company, and I get the impression that you're under 35? So in a nutshell, she dumped you into a pit of cock-hungry women. I don't know you, so of course I really don't know where your faults are. But if I were you, I'd go to our fitness, our male fashion advice, and our cooking. And then when you're ready to go back on the market, just step out your front door and feed the beast. Story 23. I never understood why honesty is so hard to find in a relationship. When I left my last, so I told him straight up, I am not intimacy attracted to you anymore. This does not change the amazing person you are, but it mean I must move on. Nuff said. We're still roommates. Story 24. Now that this thread is about 5 hours old, I doubt that this will get read, as it will be buried in the pile submitted before it, but still a good story nonetheless. This was the summer of 2010, mid-June to be exact. I woke up that morning to a call from my dad, letting me know his uncle was in the hospital after an attempted tragic end, and that his mom, my grandmother, was hospitalized for a panic attack after finding out what had happened to her brother. This was also the morning of a very close friend's wedding, to which I was a part of. Me and my girlfriend at the time were invite, as I was to be a part of the ceremony, and she knew all of my friends and was cool with coming to hang out. So I had a lot on my plate to start with. After hearing the bad news, I called my then-girlfriend to try and talk about everything in a rather hungover state due to the previous night of gentlemanly drinking. Right then and there, she told me that I was too emotionally needy and that I needed to be a man about things and that she didn't want to be with me anymore. I hung up, called my friend and told him what was going on and that I might not be able to make it. We had been together for 3 years, and all of life just piled up in 1 hour. He understood. After about 2 hours of being a sour puss about everything, I decided to show up to my friend's wedding. A half hour into the ceremony, wearing cutoff shorts, a t-shirt with a blazer, high-top chucks, sunglasses, and a six-pack of cheap beer in my hand, and flowers in the other for the bride. I was seated, told that the open bar was opened early for me, Proceed to get fudge up, sing karaoke, go to a bar, get in a fight, cry, go home, live life. It was one of the greatest days for me. Dad's uncle was fine. Grandma turned out okay. Glad to out of that relationship. Story 25. Individual, I have seen this before, and here's what you should do. First, bet your best friend that you can do 10 push-ups. Win the bet and double your cash. Next, you and your bestie go down to the local recruiter's office and sign up to be in the Army. While in basic, ensure that your DI is blown up when a captain that wants to be a prosecuting attorney at night is inspecting a mortar range. Complete your basic and be placed on a secret project in Germany. Defeat the commies, get a hot chick cop girlfriend, in a small parade when you come back to the States. Story 26. Not sure if this technically fits, but it still sucked. I dated a girl for years and we always talked about getting married, but she kept wanting to put it off. Wait until I graduate, she would say, or wait until after grad school, for which I moved across the country with her. Then she told me one day she didn't love me anymore. When I asked why we stayed together so long and what could have possibly changed, she said, I haven't been in love with you for a long time. I was just too nice to say anything. But you TF. I realized at that moment how fudge dumb she was and didn't even bother fighting for her. Story 27. I went on a date with a girl who claimed she'd only been in lesbian relationships for the past 8 years, but identified as queer, so she was attracted to men as well. First date, we have a good time out at dinner, talk about nerd stuff, go out and have a few drinks, go for a walk, then head back to her place and she's all over me. Like, almost to the point where I was uncomfortable. Good times were had, and I think she had a great time, from everything I could tell. Sometime around 3 a.m., I end up getting dressed and leaving. Next morning, I wake up around 11, check my email and see this. I think I'm not queer, that I'm a true lesbian. I thought I wanted to have intimacy with men again, but after last night I realized it has nothing to offer me. I just didn't feel anything. I'm sorry. Goodbye. If that doesn't crush your ego, I don't know what will. As a quirky side note, I later found out she was one of the most prominent writers of Lord of the Rings gay fan fiction, in which most of her stories involve gay hobbit orgies. This made a lot of sense, as there were 2 fairly decent amateur paintings of Elijah Wood as Frodo, shirtless, in her living room. She explained them to me as kind of a hobby of hers at the time. I thought she meant painting. Story 28. I cheated on you with our World of Warcraft guild leader. That's right. We were both playing show and she started an affair with this dude, then met up with him. He apparently flew in from out of state and she fudged him. They never saw or talked to each other after that. Thanks. Story 29. I dated a girl who was 4'11" back in high school. I'm 6 neuro. She dumped me because she was afraid I would violation her because I was so much bigger than her. Turns out it was a lie and she just wanted to spend more time with her horses. Not sure which is stupider. Story 30. We had been together for 5 years when she moved cross-country to start med school while I finished my undergrad. A couple of weeks after graduation, while I'm in a connecting airport on my way to see her and job hunt in her new city, you're too much of a distraction. I'm afraid I'm going to fail out because of you. Translation. I want you to devote yourself to helping me cope with my issues with no expectation of anything in return. Happy birthday to me. Story 31. Much like OP, I was told I didn't know what I was doing with my life and that I had no motivation to go anywhere, like move to another city. I have 2 bachelor's degrees and a solid IT career. 5 wires later, I'm the one that's moved from our shoot town to a big city. She was a waitress with dreams of going to grad school when we were together. Last I heard, she was working in a call center for a phone company. Story 32. I asked him what we were to him, and he said, well, I can't date you because you are a witch and I am a preacher's son, but we can still be fudge buddies. Reasons I am a witch. I asked him if he wanted me to read his horoscope, and he saw my Hermione Granger replica wand in my room. Story 33. I come from the dark side. I dumped her because she smelled like an elephant's jerk. I ended up making another excuse, though, so as to not hurt her feelings. But in retrospect, I should have just told her the truth so that the next guy she dates doesn't run away from her holding his nose like I did. Story 34. Every girl I've dated that dumped cheated on me, became lesbian, then got an intimacy change. It's counting 5 so far. Does that make me gay? If I ask, it's a manly, you wouldn't understand. Stop harassing me about it. I'm cool with the intimacy change, though curious as to why. I'm just still wondering why this is consecutive. Story 35. Gather around, boys and girls, for this is how Nixie Knox got dumped once. We were living together for around 3 years or so at this point. 'Twas Easter Sunday. Him. I'm leaving you. Me. What? Why? Him. I've met somebody else, and she's the one I was meant to be with. Me. Oh, okay. Is it Jay? A female friend of his? She was awesome. Him. No, her name is Feria. Me. Like the hair color? Him. Pissy face, grumbles something. Me. Wait, we're together almost all the time. Where did you meet her? Him. She lives with me. Me. Confused look around. Where? In the closet? Under the bed? For the record, I thought he was kidding at this point. Him. In my head. In your head? Him. In the temple in my head. Me. In your head? Fudge sake, you try and process this. Him. She's my soulmate, Nixie Knox. I'm sorry. Me. In your head. Him. Yes. Me. You're cheating on me with a voice in your head. Him. She's in the temple in my head. Me. You're leaving me for a voice in your head. Him. Me. I just kind of burst out laughing at this point. Him. Prolonged usage of substances, kids. That's bad. Very bad. Last I talked to him, they had gotten married and had some brain babies. So I guess good for them. Story 36. I feel like I'm getting in the way of your dreams. My best friend's dream is to run a soccer shop, which he is now a GM of, and to run his own soccer club. That will inevitably happen. They were engaged 2 weeks ago. They aren't anymore. I think she was just insanely scared. I'm taking him on a mandate tonight. Story 37. About 15 years ago, I dated this girl. She was a 90210 romance novel geek. It was high school, whatever. Anyway, she broke up with me so that we could get back together later because I thought it'd make us stronger. She filled me in later when I turned her down. It was pretty funny. That was the only time I was broke up with. Story 38. I can tell a complete stranger I love them because we wouldn't misunderstand me. After being together for 2 years and telling me he wanted to spend his life with me. Also in that same conversation, you're great, but there has to be someone better than you out there. Story 39. I am sorry to hear your relationship is not working the way you wanted it to. However, I fail to see how having a master's degree and making $70K a year going somewhere in life. Money does not equal life. Maybe she doesn't care about money? Perhaps you could contact her from that perspective and try to figure out how to salvage this relationship by paying attention to what your partner actually wants and needs, rather than raging at the fact that money isn't buying you happiness. Story 40. I don't see how people let this relationship shoot get to them. Don't get me wrong. I was about as lovey-dovey of a romantic as you could imagine in high school, and I had a decently long-term romantic relationship end as well. But since I've been in college, I've really had a hard time caring about hooking up, finding a girlfriend, anything romantically related, and have realized how many more important aspects of life there are. OP, you've got a pretty darn well-paying job. You're supporting yourself very well in a rough economy. Focus on hanging out with your man friends and enjoying your life by doing whatever the hell it is you like to do. I've got a group of guys that I've known since I was 10 that will mean more to me than any girl I'll ever meet. And I can tell you with complete confidence that none of them will ever leave me due to any of the bullshit excuses I've read in this thread. This doesn't mean I want to put my male body part in their assholes. Had to get that in before gay jokes. It just means that I enjoy myself in their company more than any female I've ever met, including the one that I thought I'd be in love with forever and ever and have kids with, get married, all that jazz, etc. Try to listen to my advice and enjoy the bountiful pleasures of life that have nothing to do with women, and you'll see they'll come flocking to you like you'd never imagined possible. Of course, there's the, but she was the one, you'll never understand, only I will ever feel this way. Whatever, if you actually think you're the only person that's ever been smitten with a member of the opposite intimacy only to get stabbed in the back by them, then that's just hilarious because it literally happens to everyone at some point in their lives. Stop caring about it. Don't struggle against things you can't control. Most important life lesson anyone has to learn is to pick their fights carefully and enjoy the pretty amazing life you've got right now. I would eliminate to have a $70K salary a few years after I graduate. There are a lot of people that would love to be in your position in life. Don't squander what you've got by fretting over some worthless woman. Story 41. I got the classic, I love you too much to date you right now line. Apparently the pressure of dating me was too great because he thought it would be too hard to break up in the future. AKA, I want to fudge other girls without cheating on you. We're still fudge though. I make great life decisions. Story 42. I don't know why I've been dumped so much before. I'm pretty fudge awesome, to be honest. First serious boyfriend dumped me with the words, I don't know what love is. I later found out via mutual friends that he thought I was clingy. Second boyfriend asked me out, but broke up with me because he really only wanted me to go to prom with him. He dumped me before prom, though, and then was offended that I wouldn't go with him. All around dipshoot, this guy. Then I was dumped by a guy I wasn't even dating. He said he was going off to join the Marine Police. He never actually joined the Marine Police. And finally, my last ex dumped me without really doing any of the work. He fell out of love with me about a year before we broke up. He was content with staying with me because he didn't want to mess up our friendship, giving me false hope that anything romantic was still there. Eventually, I got sick of it, called him out on it, and it was over. And now we have no real friendship because he was too much of a private area, to be honest with me. And now I am in a fudge amazing relationship, going on 4 years now, with the most kick-jerk, awesome guy and fellow Redditor who more than makes up for all those silly dudes. And going through those crappy relationships makes me appreciate how awesome and healthy my current one is. I'm so glad they dumped me. It'll get better, dude. Hugs. Story 43. I was dumped for smoking plant substance and having a job in a warehouse. She said she wanted someone that doesn't smoke and had a job with a future. She then dated a dude that didn't have a job and was a substances dealer. She had a baby with him. Idiot. Story 44. Throwaway account. Here's every one of them. You're not Mormon. I'm engaged, as in has been since before relationship started. I'm married, as in has been since before relationship started. I was seeing you to get closer to your roommate, and it worked. Somebody just proposed to me, and I said yes. I think I'm a lesbian, and it wasn't just a BS line. No explanation, just stranded me away from home and refused to return phone calls. There are only 7 on that list, but it accounts for 11 dumpings. Some have happened more than once, and you're probably wrong about which ones. Fudge relationships. I'm content to live alone. Story 45. I got dumped by my girlfriend in 10th grade because her parents said they could tell I wasn't going to amount to anything after we got out of high school. I remember the conversation and being completely confused as to why they would have such an assessment of a teen only a sophomore in high school and how they came to such conclusions since I had only been dating her for a few months and had only met them a couple of times. As the years went on and I eventually graduated, her parents came up to me and told me that they were very sorry they ever said what they did because she really did care about me but did not want to disappoint them, so she followed their suggestion. They then proceeded to attempt to reconcile our relationship, now 2 years past, with no real attachment anymore, only to find out that I had been dating someone for about a year, who is now my wife of 12 years, and that I wasn't interested. The dad turned to me and goes, "Maybe we were right about you being nothing." I can remember being so happy and celebrating graduation, and then this foul comment just shattering the mood. But I laughed it off and ignored them. Years later, I found out that she had shacked up with some guy she met that summer and ended up preggo, not once, but 3 times over the course of the next 3 years, and now lives next door to her parents with 5 kids and what looks like a Goodwill thrift store in her front yard. She's also several hundred pounds, it looks like, from our last high school reunion, and from what I was told, was married a few times. I never got a chance to thank her parents for steering me away from that train wreck. Story 46. Darn dude, not knocking you here, but something definitely feels off with this story. Most women I know would totally dig those credentials. Unless you were dating the daughter of Warren Buffett, I'm pretty sure that it was just a cover for something else that was going on. Not to make you paranoid, I obviously don't know the whole story, but you should definitely be proud of what you have accomplished in life. Answer. There's other things that contributed to us breaking up, but the reason I gave was the big factor. I guess we both saw us walking separate paths. She was disappointed that I said I would be working on my CPA this year, but I honestly haven't looked too much into it right now. She thought of it as not being serious about our future together. It doesn't help that she's Korean, from Korea, and has a sense of entitlement that parents should support their children until marriage. Story 47. I had more free time than she did. That was seriously her reason for wanting to be free of me. I work with her, occasionally still, and now she dates a guy who goes through her purse and takes money while she's sleeping. Can't say I'm feeling too sorry for her. And BTW, your ex-GF sounds like she has no grip on reality. Probably for the best. Story 48. Girl I knew had 2-3 months left in town before graduating. We start something small. She stops because she wants it to be more serious under Tay impression. I'm just using her cause what else could she start in the next 3 months? We finally agree to think long term. She leaves for a week to apartment hunt, invites me out with her. I couldn't schedule the time off. She comes back, says she didn't want anything long-term, and went home with a random dude at the bar a week later. The dude happened to be my good friend and neighbor, unaware of our prior affair, and spent the night bragging about it to me before I realized we were talking about the same girl. Story 49. Do you really want a hug? That might make you feel a little bit better, but if you want, I offer deluxe hugs which are guaranteed to make you feel better and only cost $1.99. They last longer than the regular hug, and for an additional 50 cents, I'll even tell you that I love you. You can find my reviews on Yelp. Story 50. I'm sorry about your situation and I realize you are mad, but I just wanted to share an eerily similar experience I had a couple of years ago from an art major's perspective. An old boyfriend broke up with me because I was in art school, had too much drive, and I was too busy. Truth be told, I wasn't too busy, but I dedicate myself to my studio to make something of myself because I am going for an art degree. I went into the major at a large university rather than your typical art school because I dislike the atmosphere and money grubbing of places like Savannah or the Art Institutes. So I wasn't guaranteed an internship semester or was at a university that hosts a job fair for the art school. To help myself, I was very active on campus and would volunteer my graphic design abilities and had a ton of commissions for money. On top of that, I had fencing practice almost every evening after class. So I scheduled my week so far in advance that I managed to see this dude every day face to face, connect via text and email in the morning, occasional lunches, and in the evening. However, it still wasn't enough for him. He was incredibly selfish, and his future seemed more bleak than I. English major, no concentration, but had a pretty good research job. But he constantly made fun of me because I was an art student. I never made fun of him, but I would retort on occasion and he would say I was acting sensitive. I tend to think he was threatened by the fact that an art major had more of a future than him because I was given temporary jobs like layout design for publications, website design, children's book creations, scientific illustration for the university museum, and medical illustration. This is the field I will probably go into graduate school for, and just by freelancing, I know can make a living on this. In the summer, I got an amazing local graphic design internship to see him and still get lessons at a nearby fencing club to compete for nationals. I never tried to outdo him, nor did I say anything because I tend to never mix my work and my personal life, but he made our relationship a giant competition. It's also true that my father is paying for my education, but he started saving money for my education before I was even born. I'm super impressed by how he managed to do this while he was slowly paying off law school loans. To this day, I'm super grateful for how hard my father works, and I aspire to be just like him. I love him and mother, who also works side jobs to help pay for my school, with all my heart. Funny enough, this ex often made me feel guilty because of my father paying for my education while he was paying student loans. However, I am paying for my rent, electricity, food, and other spending expenses because I choose to. In order to keep it up, I took a low-wage 10-hour job with commissions. My father has to pay for 2 other siblings to go to the same, most expensive in-state university, and I didn't want to be a burden any longer on my parents. All in all, I'm used to people teasing me about being an art major, but for a boyfriend to constantly rag on me for it means good riddance. Edit spelling errors. Story 51. A couple of years ago, I was quasi-dumped by my fiancée. She was growing extremely distant, and no matter what I tried to do, how many times we talked, putting more effort into spending more time together, I was working nights and switched to days, losing the $400-month premium because she said that would help. Nothing really worked. She was constantly dodging me physically, not only intimacy, but no hugs, kiss on the cheek before leaving for work, cuddles, that sort of stuff, and emotionally talking to everyone else on Facebook and at her workplace about our relationship. I was able to get free couples counseling from my benefits package at work, and she said she would try, but was never able to commit to a specific date. She ultimately decided the reason was that she magically didn't love me anymore. I got tired of this act really fast, so I told her if she wasn't willing to commit to working this out, then we should break up, and she seemed surprised that I would suggest that. So we split up, but we're living together, and since the place was in my name, I could have kicked her out, but trying to maintain some integrity. I knew that she would eventually find a place, so I stayed with a friend for about a month while paying the bills for her to get her stuff in order. When I came back to our old apartment, I found that everything we had bought together was gone. She even took all the toilet paper. She also went on to tell her family, who loved me BTW, and friends that she was scared of me and afraid to be with me. Everyone knew this was her looking for attention and a way for her to be a victim, but it still hurt that she tried so desperately to slander my character. I found out a few days later that she had dumped all of our stuff at her parents' place and then disappeared for 3 days. So her parents brought most of the furniture back to my apartment. Her mother told me she was upset that we broke up, but that I was too good of a guy to have to deal with her bullshit. That helped a little. A few weeks later, I found out from a friend that within 3 months of our split, she had gone through 4 or 5 different guys, and she was seen with guys even within 1 week of our split. I've also been dumped with the God doesn't, blah, 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 this relationship. The last time I heard that, I totally called her out and said, no, by God, you mean your feelings. Story 52. Things are getting too serious. The last thing I want is a girlfriend right now. 2 weeks after telling him I was pregnant 3 years into our relationship, his initial response was okay. He's middle-aged and in a serious relationship with someone who went to her own prom this past spring. And here I thought the problem was that he didn't like children. Story 53. I can top them all. I was dumped by my fiancé of 1 year, girlfriend of 4 years, and known for 10 years for the following reasons. I wear Birkenstock sandals. I wear a hostess character shirt, Twinkie guy, ho-ho guy, etc., and a Mountain Dew shirt. I spent money on my car. I went out to lunch to eat with coworkers. Yep, and that's about it. She really had no legitimate reason. I still was saving money and managed it well, whereas she had no job and was still in school. Who knows? Story 54. I was dumped because I refused to become a full-time vegan. I think we all know that cheese is delicious, and so are eggs, and yes, bacon as well. I never ate anything of the sort, save for cheese, around her. This is a 3-year relationship, mind you. But she met a vegan she liked, and now they live on an island. But I got my breakfast. Story 55. I'm not even intending to jump the dislike Twilight bandwagon. This actually happened. One day, my girlfriend at the time talked about how much she was interested in Edward Cullen and wanted to be a vampire. This was around the time the first Twilight movie was popular. I was dumped the next day. Edit grammar. Story 56. In my experience, young women who are in liberal arts programs, especially in traditionally artsy cities, are looking for someone that is similarly idealistic and less pragmatic. A close friend is also an accountant and noted that every time he would mention what he did at a party, girls would literally say, "Oh," and extricate themselves from the situation. Some types of people think you're boring and not following your dreams if you're in a stable job and trying to grow professionally. They want to hear that you're an aspiring author or a musician. A few years down the line, many of them will be looking for guys like you, though, when the impetuous nature of youth cools off a bit. Story 57. For what it's worth, 70K, I wouldn't say you are going nowhere. She just was too big of a coward to say why she really was doing it. My ex-wife, the day she told me it was over after 10 darn years of marriage. She had been a stay-at-home mom until our daughter started grade school. Then she decided she wanted her master's degree, so I put her through that. She had just gotten her first job a few weeks before, and the first paycheck was due to roll in that week. We just aren't good together anymore. Plus, you just haven't trusted me the same since I cheated on you. You just don't seem to want to get over it. Anyway, I am doing you a favor by divorcing you now because you won't have to pay alimony, so you really should be thanking me. Now, I only see my daughter 4 days a month, except for in the summer. She is going through her second divorce now because he cheated on her. Karma. Story 58. I was given 5 reasons after 5 years. I smoked too much plant substance. I didn't like her family. I treat my body like shoot. I'm too negative. I'm an idiot with money and have 100K of debt from mistakes in my youth. To be honest, we were a terrible match. You're probably better off, dude. Anyone with that kind of value system was just going to progressively make you more miserable. The words during the breakup ultimately matter less than the actions. Make sure you don't say anything you'll feel bad about later and go have some revenge intimacy. I forgot to do both of those. And ladies, if the above flaws don't scare you, I'm 37, unemployed, overweight, and single. A real catch. Story 59. Dude, fudge her. She's not going to be happy with anyone. My ex used to tell me I didn't understand how hard things were and called me lazy. I was going to school for engineering and taking 6 classes with 30 hours a week at work. She was doing 4 classes in a liberal arts degree and not working. Sometimes their arguments aren't based in reason and they just need an excuse to put you down. Story 60. One in high school said that I was too happy and another said that I never got mad about anything. I think one girl and her friends had me up on a pedestal that I was cool, a little rebellious and mysterious, but once she got to know me and I was just another normal guy, she got bored. Then I left for college, and when I ran into her again when I visited home, her and her friend got into an argument about how she had no gag reflex and her friend could fit her fist into her mouth. That was not the way I expected the reunion to happen. Story 61. I had an on-stage dancing performance that involved 20 people or so interchanging partners. My ex said it felt like I cheated on her and broke up with me. It was a square dancing church performance. While that was darn insane, it's exacerbated by the fact that at the same time she had a close male friend that she would spend hours with every day, alone, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, tipsy, holding hands for stabilization. After we broke up, she was fudge him a week later. We were together for a few years before that point. What I've learned from that is that if someone blames you for an irrational worry, that's actually them telling you what they're doing behind your back. Story 62. I needed to quit drinking to save money, Proved to myself I could, and because I work 50 hours a week. Ex liked to drink and party till 4 a.m. Her excuse was, we are on different paths and mine isn't a sober one. I didn't ask her to quit with me, and it wasn't a forever thing, having one now, but I did find out how much of an alcoholic she was. Now she has 2 DUIs because my sober jerk wasn't there to drive. Story 63. That sucks, but I reckon it will feel like a luck escape in a few years. Maybe some perspective. From the description you gave, it sounds like she has a different value system, i.e., a different definition of what going somewhere means. An artist might put value in personal development and expression of one's emotions. This is a development of the inner world, but maybe for you this is not so important. You are happy and content developing your career. This is development of your outer world. With these different definitions, I can see how she could justify that. She wanted something different. It sucks, man. I'm sorry, but it will feel like a lucky escape in a few years, I promise. Story 64. She is in art school, finishing up her bachelor's with daddy's money, and has never worked a day in her life. Well, there's your problem right there. My GF works 2 jobs willingly and is the sweetest person I know. If she dumped me with the same excuse as your ex, I'd be like, fair enough. My point is, I think you're better off without her. Good luck, man. Stay strong. Story 65. Ex-fiance was in a really shoot local band. What if I'm on the road touring someday and some random girl wants to give me a BJ? I can't say no to that opportunity. He and his new wife work at a gas station. His band never toured. He never got a random BJ. Story 66. We'd be too far away from each other to make it work. When my high school sweetheart, a year ahead of me, got into a university 4 miles away from my home. We eventually got back together, though. Nearly a year later. We made a 3,000-mile-away long-distance relationship work splendidly for 3 years. I got into a college on the opposite coast, and now we're husband and wife. Story 67. No one will probably ever read this, but I've had 2 different ex-girlfriends that never knew each other tell me they were dying of cancer. One said she was dying of cervical cancer and just wanted some time alone. She ended up getting with some dude she met at a bar. Second girl said she was dying of breast cancer and wanted to move back home, a state away, to be closer with her mom. Ended up moving back to her ex-boyfriend's apartment. Story 68. After attempting unsuccessfully to piss me off numerous times over 2 months' time, I guess I have a high tolerance for annoying people. A guy finally broke up with me over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Since I'm Jewish and his family had Libyan roots, or Liberian, the whole thing confuses me anyway. Turns out he was just cheating on me. It took me a year to figure it out too. Story 69. I dated her for 3 months. It was a whirlwind romance. We were both in our mid-30s and pretty responsible, so I think it was surprising to both of us how strong the physical chemistry and our friendship grew. We spoke every day, sometimes for hours. One day I told her I loved her. When she finally replied, she said she didn't feel the same way and that there was just no spark. Despite the fact we only dated 3 months, this was the most devastating end to a relationship that I ever had. She never actually said anything about breaking up or dumping me, and she basically just stopped talking to me. I started drinking. I used other women. I told them about her, and they all seemed to think that if I felt so passionately about her, I would eventually feel the same about her. I think it took me over a year and around 6 women to move on. I obviously still think about her from time to time. The happy ending, I met my wife in the same place I met the one that got way. Of course, no 2 relationships are the same, but my wife is the nicest, most loving person I have ever known. Also, we're expecting a baby. You have my sympathy, but be patient. Keep your standards high and just be the best person you can be, and you'll find the right one for you. It won't be the same, but it will be amazing. Story 70. Funny you say that. There is this girl that I went to school with since kindergarten, and she started dating this guy in about grade 10 and kept dating him until about 2 years after our graduation. She was really smart and was going to school to be a doctor, and the guy was doing something artsy, I'm not quite sure what, but all in all, she ended up dumping him because he wasn't good enough for her. Of course, she didn't word it like that, but it was basically the same concept that your situation is. About 6 months ago, I started seeing this girl. Things went well, except it just kept bugging me how her last relationship ended, and I was scared that I'd end with the same fate since I'm not in college. I just work at a fudge sawmill, making 20 HR. Big whoop. She was really pretty, smart as hell, great to talk to, loves sports, and just pretty much a prefect match for me. But my paranoia of not being good enough for her scared me off and made me end it. Kinda regret it. I wish I would have made it last as long as I could. Bleh, just thought I'd share. Story 71. A, 70K is not that much. B, maybe she didn't like where you were going. Being an artist, option B makes sense. B, C, the life you described is contrary to the lifestyle she may want. Middle management and more money doesn't equate to having made it to everyone. Story 72. My first girlfriend told me that her mom didn't approve of us dating because I am black. Never mind, I was taking 2 AP courses as a sophomore, played varsity football and baseball. But a few years later, she was busted having an affair with the principal. I just wanted to do a Nelson, ha ha. Story 73. I had a similar experience, but reversed. My ex felt her life was not going anywhere, so she dumped me in an attempt to turn her life around because, we were too complacent. After 2 weeks, I've somewhat realized she was half right, and I actually was not as happy as I thought I was. My only advice is to not let it get to you and keep progressing your future. She honestly may have seen your life going so well and felt hers was menial. From the sound of it, she would rather live a miserable life as an art major that will never make more than 20K. E-hug sent. Stay positive and try to find a girl as ambitious as you are that understands what success truly is. Story 74. Manly hug, my favorite star. You've been too nice to me, so now I'm a meanie, but it's your fault. Then I dumped her. And GF goes to college 12 hours a week, no part-time job, goes to bed at 3 a.m. every night, watching cat pics and shoot, wakes up between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. every day. So on Saturdays, I accepted a morning job offer to pay for the fudge, expensive afternoon and Sunday dates. She assured me we really needed. So after waking up around noon and supposed to meet me after my 3 hours morning job, she'd be late, between 40 and 90 mod min, even though it takes 13 minutes from our place to the meeting point, and there's a bus or train every 12 minutes. Typical excuses. Forgot my wallet, even though she never paid a penny for anything. Forgot to put makeup on. Changed her mind about clothes. Changed her mind about makeup. Barely noticeable anyway. Decided I would like this pendant better than that pendant, even though already 20 min late and has already run all the way to the station, but still goes home for a fudge pendant. Upon arriving late every fudge weekend, she would sigh and complain how the day is already ruined because it's too late to go anywhere, even though we lived in Tokyo and everything was in a 20 to 45 min radius. Even the freaking seaside is like 90 min away. That leaves plenty of time. So after 2 to 3 years of that shoot, I get a "you don't really love me because you've chosen to work on Saturday rather than spending time with me." WTF, meanie, you go to bed at 3 a.m. and wake up in the afternoon every Saturday for the last 4 years. WTF dumped. Story 75. On the bright side, she just saved you 300K from the future divorce. Secondly, come on, an art student? What were you thinking? You with a master's in accounting couldn't have had that much in common. Actually, you probably just didn't make enough to put her future crotchlings through that same fancy art school without her having to pick up a job or two sometime in life. Or perhaps sell a piece of her shoot artwork once in a while. Here's how it could have went. You didn't break up and live happily ever after, then get married. Wife isn't happy with the house you've married and moved into.